And at this point, I'd like to bring up our hero of the day here, one of many, but Sheriff Mack, who I've had the pleasure to now work with. And thank you, Mack. Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, there should be something. Yeah, go ahead and bring that up. We're going to get right into this. We don't have a lot of time to mess around, so no opening frivolity or jokes, you know. I told most of my jokes last night, so we're not going to do them today. But look at this. This is an equation for liberty. Residual state sovereignty was also implicit, of course, in the Constitution's conferral, now get this, Constitution's conferral upon Congress of not all governmental powers. Stop right there, don't read anymore. Stop right there. So Congress was not delegated all governmental powers. Wouldn't that shock them to know that? Because seriously, what limitations are there today on governmental powers? There's none. Do you know what they think? They think they are the only ones to determine how far their power goes. Only them. And we've seen that in a lot of places recently. Do you know that the FBI did not once, in all the hundreds, maybe thousands of arrests they made pursuant to J6 dissidents and insurrectionists and rioters and violent scumbags, when they went to pick them up in California and Utah and several different places, do you know the Constitution requires extradition? Do you know how many were extradited? Not one. Not one. And the FBI just marches on with this agenda of theirs that never has to follow the Constitution if they say they don't. So let's read again from the Mack Prince case. This is a Supreme Court decision you're looking at right here. Okay, so what kind of powers does the federal government have? Next line. But only discrete enumerated ones. Remember last night? Now some of you weren't here. Can anybody tell me any of the 5 powers that were delegated to the federal government, law enforcement wise? The first one is treason. Second, counterfeiting. Third, piracies. Fourth, they are required to protect our borders. That's a good one, isn't it? And then violations of treaties or laws against nations. Now, Alex just mentioned the 10th Amendment. Our case was based on the 10th Amendment, even though it was a pile of, sorry, my wife's here. It was a pile of gun control laws. The Brady Bill was as Scalia put it, a gun control scheme. And indeed it was, a scam as well. And so 7 sheriffs, 6 other sheriffs joined me in this lawsuit. And I was by myself for like 4 weeks, and I thought, oh man, the federal government will have a field day with me, squashing me like a little pumpkin seed. And then thank goodness Sheriff Prince joined just a few weeks later, and then 5 after that. Okay, now how do we keep the federal government's powers discrete and enumerated? How do we keep it that way? Scalia answers the question. By the 10th Amendment's assertion. By enforcing the 10th Amendment. Now here's a legal question for you. Who's supposed to enforce the 10th Amendment? Oh, sheriffs, governors, we the people, county commissioners. In one of my books, I was actually trying to find it this morning. I thought it was in Are You a David? And I started reading through this. Folks, this is a real good book. Wow. I said, man, did I write that? Yeah. I didn't memorize all 8 books, okay, so it's kind of hard, but this is a great book, you know. And so I saw something from a sheriff in Louisiana, and he was going to a 4th of July event to say a prayer at this outdoor event to the public. And boy, the anti-freedom of religion people really got after him. And this is what he said: "I am an elected official. I'm also a citizen here. I think this is what's best for us. I don't work for anybody in Washington, D.C. What they do, what they say, I couldn't really care less." You know? Yeah, God bless him. Sheriff Whitting. So we're looking at this, and I want to finish this. So this is an equation. What kind of powers does the federal government have? It doesn't even total 40, if you remember last night. There's not even 40 powers delegated to the federal government. Do you know how many they've stolen? Thousands. And do they care? No, because no one has ever called about it. And the states and the other two branches have got to keep them in check. Okay? The last and final check is we the people. And wouldn't that be wonderful? What if you're committing an act of civil disobedience and your sheriff and his deputies are there with you? You see the power of that? Yeah. And so now Scalia tells you why this is all true, because then he quotes the 10th Amendment. And Alex just did. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution are reserved to the people or to the states. Does that show you how powerful the people are? We've got to wake up. We've got to do. Okay, and I already said numerous times, folks, this is not a wake-up rally. This meeting is a plan of action, okay? We've got to get busy now on a plan of action. And getting the sheriffs and getting the county commissioners. In fact, I even have a book. What I was looking for, and I didn't find it in, and maybe it's in here, The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. I actually thought it was in this one, but anyway, that's what happens when you write 7 or 8 books. I can't remember where it is, but I had an equation. I said literally, constitutional county commissioners plus a constitutional sheriff equals liberty. Yep, exactly. And so, folks, where do you need to spend your time and money? Locally. If you're, you know, I'm telling you right now, the two most important races in your state are governor and sheriff. And some states have lots of sheriffs, like Texas, 254. Here you have what, 68, 66, what is it? 67? Well, I was close. Yeah, 67, good. And so, you see the potential there, though? You only need 3 or 4 people to really work on in your county. And when it comes right down to it, you and the sheriff can do it. But it'd sure be nice to have, you want a miracle on all this? Get your county attorney on board. Yeah, there's your miracle. So, this is right out of the United States Supreme Court. Folks, my wife just handed you. I gave everybody one of these. No, I don't want to lose this. Because I'm going to ask a sheriff candidate. Mike, where are you? There you are, yes. I want you to read, and because I know you have a big loud voice, and I want you to make sure everybody hears. And I'm serious. I want page 8, the second to the last paragraph, and I want everybody to follow along. Well, Sheriff candidate Mike Gauger reads this. It starts with, as Madison. Stand up and read that as loud as you can. Page 8 in this little booklet, as Madison, go. Folks, Scalia is, oh, thank you so much, Mike. That was great. Scalia is quoting the Federalist Papers. Do you know why? Do you know what? He promised us in his opening. Do you know what he said? When he introduced the decision, he actually says this. Because there is no, and I'm on bottom of page 3, because there is no constitutional text speaking to this precise question, the answer to the CLEOs. Now, I asked this last night, and Sheriff Lamb knew the answer right off. What is a CLEO? Chief Law Enforcement Officer. Do you know who the Supreme Court is calling that to? He called us that. And you know why? Because the Brady Bill itself called us that. Inside the Brady Bill, when they're ordering the CLEOs to work for them for free under a threat of arrest if we failed to comply. Can you believe this? And most sheriffs just went along. And I kind of think sometimes that was the purpose of the Brady Bill. Let's see how many. We're gonna command them and order them to work for us. Let's see how many of them actually fight it. Stand up to it. Some dumb little kid in southeast Arizona did it, and then 6 others joined in. How could anybody go along with this? And if we had lost, the sheriffs would be reporting to the BATF today. Yeah, because that's who actually came to our meeting in Phoenix, Sheriff's Association meeting, and gave us our marching orders as to what we had to do to comply with the Brady Bill. And I'm just sitting there shaking my head the whole time while the other sheriffs are throwing F-bombs and cussing up a storm. None of them liked it. None of them liked it. But at the end of the day, all of them, except the dumb kid, all of them acquiesced and said, well, we're just going to have to, you can't, they said this over and over. I got sick and hearing it. You can't fight City Hall. Who wants you to think that? Yeah. So, folks, do you see the power of this decision? This is such a huge tool for you. And do you know how much this cost? Back in the 90s, early 90s, all the lawyers that we had, who paid for all that? Don't look at me. I've never had that kind of money. I guess I was led, because I wasn't even a member, I called the NRA. And let me tell you though, Gun Owners of America helped me more than any of the international group. Yeah. But the NRA funded this, and then right after we won, they kind of contradicted the ruling. But GOA never did. GOA never compromises, and I've loved that about them. And they're here, by the way. So I called the NRA, and I landed in the office of Richard Gardner, and he was a lawyer for the NRA, and I told him who I was and what I wanted to do, that I wanted to sue this and stop this nonsense. And the next line out of Richard Gardner's mouth changed my life forever. He said, Sheriff, we've already been preparing the paperwork on this case, and we've been praying that you would call. And I said, you don't even know me. He goes, we needed a sheriff, and you're the first one to call. And so the rest was history. There ended up being 7 sheriffs doing this, and all of us won at the district court, except the one in Texas. How do you lose a state sovereignty Second Amendment case in Texas? And I kind of surmised that it must have been that district judge that moved in from Chicago, you know. So anyway, let's keep rolling here, and we'll go this way. All right, cool. Now, all right. Now get this. This is Scalia again quoting the Federalist Papers. This is Federalist 51. Hence a double security. And I got this memorized. And Sheriff Leaf told you last night he's got some of this stuff memorized, and it's on his desk and it's in his office. And he refers to it constantly. Is there anybody else in here that should be referring to this decision every day? Yeah, like citizens spreading this around to mayors and city councilmen and county commissioners, do you see what our job is? Do you see the potential here? If a handful of sheriffs can make a difference across America, oh, and by the way, do you know how many Brady Bills were scheduled to be passed? 4 more. So Brady Bills 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 were all to be passed 1 year after the other. 2 weeks after I filed on Brady Bill 1, Howard Metzenbaum introduced Brady Bill 2. And it didn't even get out of committee because they were saying, we got a sheriff suing on number 1. We're not going to go with number 2 yet. We got to see what the courts say. After the Supreme Court sided with us, we never heard from 2, 3, 4, 5 again. We stopped all of that. Sheriffs have done more in this country to save the Second Amendment than Congress has in the last 150 years because they're going the other way. So, and when you have, how do you get this double security that he's talking about? Hence, a double security arises to the rights of the people. How? The different governments will control each other. And yet I get assailed and criticized. When I say that this is what sheriffs are supposed to do, control the other, control tyranny, stand up to tyranny, not accept tyranny, tyranny won't happen in our county, then the national press and these groups, SPLC and IRHR and ADL, Anti-Defamation League, they defame me all the time. And I try to call them on it and they don't care. So I said, you guys need to quit calling yourselves the Anti-Defamation League. You're the Pro-Defamation League, okay? Yeah, come on, call it straight. And all these other groups, Washington Post, they just really go after me. CNN, oh, wow. So I got interviewed by CNN, Sarah Sidner, she's big time with CNN. And I said, I know you're gonna lie about me. She goes, you don't even know me, why would you say such a thing? I said, you work for CNN, enough said. Okay, and she did. Okay, so, and then the last part, the different governments will control each other at the same time that each will be controlled by itself. Any question as to whether or not the federal government will control itself. And that's why this is so powerful, folks. We have to do it. They're not going to do it. The federal government is the greatest threat to our God-given constitutional American republic. They are the greatest threat, okay? Who has allowed gangs, international terrorists, and cartels, and the proliferation of human trafficking and sexual exploitation of children and drug proliferation in this country? Who's responsible? Federal government. We could get real specific about that, but let's just keep it that way. The White House, Congress, and the corruption of Washington, D.C. is so evident, and we're supposed to all go along. When they choose to destroy the Constitution, destroy our country, the sheriffs are somehow supposed to just follow along and go along with it because we're such good friends and they give us so much money. We got to keep those federal grants coming in, so we have to go along with them. So sheriffs who say that, you're willing to compromise the liberty of your people for your grants and your salary and your pension? We already have enough political prostitutes in Washington, D.C. We don't need any more out here, you know. Federalist 51, folks. And we just had a conference in Vegas. This one is an emergency one. We didn't plan this one. This one, like Bill said earlier, 100 days ago, we didn't know we were doing this. And that's why we really had to hurry. And those of you who have donated, thank you so much. And then we read this one last night. This is what Sheriff Leaf went over also with us. And I want to go over the order of the court. If you do anything else, look at the order of the court. So that's what we're going to look at right now. We held in New York. That was the New York VUS case of 1992, where New York sued the federal government and said, no, we're not taking your nuclear waste. the federal government ordered New York to take their nuclear waste. New York said, you guys are crazy. And they sued them, and they won. And so Sheriff Rogers is going to talk to you about, County Commissioner Rogers is going to talk to you about the fight that he had with the federal government over this same issue. We held in New York that Congress cannot compel the states to enforce or enact a federal regulatory program. What would that do to all the COVID mandates? Yeah. But then what would Sheriff Lamb have done? You know, he wouldn't have had anything to do, you know? So today we hold that Congress, today in the Mack Prince case, today we hold that Congress cannot circumvent that prohibition by conscripting the state's officers directly. In other words, go around the state legislature and say, sheriffs, you're going to do this for us whether you like it or not, and if you don't like it, you're subject to a year in prison or a $10,000 fine, or both. And sheriffs went along with that? Oh my God. So, the federal government, starting in yellow here up on the board, the federal government may neither issue directives requiring the states to address particular problems, nor command the state's officers or those of their political subdivisions. What are the political subdivisions of the state? Cities, school boards, counties. Can you think of any others? What? Oh, maybe, yeah. But anything that's a political subdivision of the state, they're part of this. So you can't go, well, your state legislature is not subject to federal direction, but your city council is. No, it makes it across the board. In fact, all they had to say was, states are not subject to federal direction. In New York, they had actually said state legislatures. But if your state legislatures are not subject to federal direction, then none of you are, because they're all part of the state. And then he clarifies it right here. Scalia clarifies it. Or those of your political subdivisions. How many times you hear school board? Well, we have so many federal mandates, we can't do that. What did I vote for you for then? Tell the federal government to come out here and run the school board then. You're not running it. Okay? And why do you have all those mandates? Because they give us money. Oh. Tell them to shove it. Okay? Or those of their political subdivisions to administer or enforce a federal regulatory program. Think that's enough? No. It matters not whether policy making is involved, and I love this one, and no case-by-case weighing of the burdens or benefits is necessary. Where am I on time? Oh, good, 7 minutes. No case-by-case weighing of the burdens or benefits is necessary. You know where that came from? When I was testifying in the district court in Tucson. And the lawyer for the federal government was cross-examining me. And I was actually thinking, man, she's painting me into a corner here. This isn't going to go well. And then she stopped. And you're going to like this, Shane. She's an attorney, and she's supposed to be asking me questions. She stopped, and she started testifying. I kid you not, I've never seen this before. I've been to courts hundreds of times. I've never seen this. She literally turned from me, facing me like this, and she turned to the judge, and she said, well, Your Honor, in the first 4 months of the implementation of the Brady Bill background checks, we have denied 250,000 felons, 250,000 felons all across America from getting access to guns. Really? So 250,000 felons walked into gun shops and filled out this little yellow form and said, I'm a fugitive from justice. Sure they did. I looked it up. She lied bad. But that never stops them. And how do you, as a witness, tell your attorney to object when I can't say anything? So how do you make that face to your attorney to... Okay? I didn't do any of that. You know, I'm just going, I'm looking at him. I'm going, what are you waiting for? I'm so glad he did. His name was Dave Hardy. He's really smart. And he just let her go because the judge did it. And he said this. He said, "Counselor, do not pretend in this courtroom that your statistical analysis somehow equates to constitutionality." Man, I said, history being made right here in front of us, Paul. So loved it. So that's why it ended up being there that no case-by-case weighing of the burdens or benefits is necessary. How often do we get in that argument on gun control? Does it make us safer? Does it reduce crime? Look at it. Look at all the statistics. I don't give a flying banana about the statistics. I care about if you have constitutional authority to pass that law. I don't care. I don't care what the benefits and burdens are. You must follow the law. And every time they do, over 20,000 gun control laws in America. And they just keep marching along, don't they? Wow. No case-by-case weighing of the burdens or benefits is necessary. Such commands are fundamentally incompatible with our constitutional system. And you can add dual sovereignty there if you want. Who are the dual sovereigns? The American government is sovereign when they're within their proper sphere of authority. Yes. Outside that, they have none. There's no protection for them. But try to take them to court and see who wins. That's why we have to stop them at the border. And folks, there's two things we want every sheriff to do. Now, I talked to some sheriffs before I got here, quite a few actually. And one of them from Arizona, Mark knows him very well. And I said, shouldn't all the sheriffs be telling the federal government to check in with them first when they come into their counties? He says, of course. He says, we already do that. And you'd probably be surprised how many are already doing that. But you still want to find out, because a lot of them are not doing that. They can do whatever they want. They got jurisdiction nationwide. They have jurisdiction in 5 areas, and we already named those, okay? Are they there investigating treason or counterfeiting or piracies? Then they have no business there, unless they're treaties or trying to find out a way to protect the border. Yeah. Our constitutional system of dual sovereignty. How big is state sovereignty? Like humongous. And federal sovereignty? Right in that little circle, because there's only what? Discrete enumerated powers. Folks, this is so powerful. Anything about it?
Let me have those front seats. Y'all better make it light on yourselves and let me have those seats.
Are you going to move?
No. If you don't give me that seat, I'm gonna have you arrested.
Okay, you got it.
Do that.
Just stop it right there. Yeah, thank you. Okay, Rosa Parks was arrested for not giving her seat to a white man. Do we still do that today? Oh yeah. Maybe not to blacks, and maybe not about bus seats or where we sit. How about the Amish farmers who don't pasteurize their milk? How about Sam Gerard, an Amish farmer from Bath County, Kentucky, who got 6 years in prison, federal prison, because he made a salve out of chickweed. Now, before I went out to work with him to try to save him from going to prison, I didn't know what chickweed was. But I know it's not a Schedule I substance. In fact, it's not any kind of a substance at all. It's just a weed. that grows, and it helps with certain ailments on your skin. I've used it lots of times. And a man went to prison over this, an Amish farmer. When I had to look his wife in her tear-drenched face, I could not take it anymore. This is the type of cruel and bullying federal government that we have. And it is our job to protect our citizens from that. Our county commissioners, forming, as Alex was saying, constitutional counties. Erect the barriers, Madison said. Erect the barriers. A true constitutional sheriff would have gone up to Rosa Parks, escorted her home, and given her family extra patrol all night long. And then throughout the coming days to make sure that they were left alone by those white hooded knights and anyone else. After this got out, that she had the audacity not to give her seat to a white man. I was 3 years old when this happened. December 1st, 1955, Montgomery, Alabama. I love her courage, but I would have loved the sheriff who would have had the same amount of courage to defend her. Doing so is all we're after at the CSPOA. We want constitutional sheriffs to protect the rights of all people, all the time, no exceptions. I don't care who you are. I don't care who your daddy is. I don't care what your nationality is. This is a peaceful process to protect liberty for all people. Remember, civil rights is our goal for all people, all creeds, all colors, all religions. I don't care, and neither should you. Folks, come by the table. If I drop that one more time. Come by our table and get these books out there. They're great. And I'm going to ask you to do one other thing. Join the CSPOA. Become a member and help us out. Thank you, Bob Songer. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. God bless you. God bless us. May we stand peacefully and effectively for liberty.